So pursuant to Governor Baker's COVID-related orders, we are meeting tonight via remote participation. A copy of the Grafton Public Meeting Remote Participation Guidelines is available on the town website for reference. So we'll start with a roll call. Sue Robbins.
Here.
Greg Marr.
Here.
Amy Marr.
Here.
Matt Often.
Here.
Jeremy Graves.
Here.
And Colleen Roy present. Okay, so tonight we're going to start talking about the 5-year plan. And Greg, I don't actually have an agenda right in front of me, so if I go off, or if I miss something, can you tell me?
Yeah, so it's just review additional submissions and then discuss the 5-year plan. And then future meetings and minutes and adjourn.
Thank you. So I didn't get any more additional. I know there's some coming, but we didn't get them yet. So that's that. The only questions I really have for the 5-year plan is how do we want to handle the unfunded FY22 requests? How do we incorporate that into the 5-year plan? They automatically go to FY23. Do we wait for them to request them again to see if they still need it, if they figured out something else? And then how to include the schools. Those are my two big questions. But I
was expecting that 22 would be the start of the 5-year plan. So we'd start with everything in 22. And because we don't know what's being funded for 22 yet. So we can mark which ones we've recommended or just show the requests or something like that.
Oh, I like that. I started it at FY23, but that's a good idea. So I'll show you guys what I started doing here. Let me hope you guys can see that. Can you see that?
It's coming up.
Working on it.
Yep. There we go.
All right. Is that big enough? Should I?
Bigger.
Okay. Oh, here we go. Is that good?
Yep.
All right. So this was just provided online from the DLS, and I took their example and just started punching in stuff that I knew, and all of the Excel codes were already built in, which is great because I don't know them. But when I started doing that and I got down to their funding summary, it messed up some stuff somewhere. So these totals were all part of their example. That needs to get removed, but something happened and that's why these are all messed up. And then down here was an example of the narrative, which I think is great. I wish I had remembered about this before we sent our FY22 plan to Carter, because I would have probably done this. It's not too late, but these are my thoughts. What are you guys thinking? Do you like this approach? Do you have a different approach in mind, or?
Yeah, I saw this in the handbook you sent us, and I thought that was a good way to do it.
Okay.
I like this, and I think you still should send the bottom part, the reasons why, or why they
The narrative.
The narrative. Yes, that's
all the projects or just for FY22?
Just for FY22, because that would be very helpful for the finance committee when they look at it.
Yep.
I guess one of my questions would be for things like the counters at the municipal center, how we kind of a little bit punted on that because it was a big request, because there were lots of counters. We want to kind of parse those out over time. So how do we reflect that as something that the request was quite large, but we've asked for it to be broken down and, spread out over multiple years. So how do we incorporate that kind of request with this process?
Maybe after the narrative for 2022, we have a similar section for other notes or other comments or things like that. So yeah, we submitted as one request without any particular year specified. We recommend doing it over multiple years due to the cost or something like that.
Okay. So are you, Greg, are you suggesting have just a whole new section with like a hodgepodge of all of the FY22 unfunded requests?
I think we need to list everything in as it was put in, and then after this table that lists all the requests, we have a section on the details on the 2022, and then a section on details on additional ones, or maybe we just list it inside the narrative on 2022.
I agree. I think it's important to keep a running record of everything we've considered. And I think part of the point of the 5-year plan is to be a resource for the community, right? To help the community understand what are the projects that we're looking at. I mean, we're not really providing rationale per se, but here's what we're funding, here's what we're not funding, here's what we're looking at for the future. And I think I don't want to say as much information as we can provide, that's not really what I mean, but make sure that everybody knows that we're paying attention and we're counting everything. Like we're seeing the whole picture, and a little narrative goes a long way. As opposed to just saying curb construction, like, okay, where? That's so important because that's something a resident's going to look at and say, oh, hey, that's my neighborhood. Or, I think it's important for the residents to resonate with them. And I can help with the schools because I know we've got narratives for everything all the way out. So I
Right.
can help put stuff in once we have it all set up and available.
And we sort of did this with some of the projects when we did our Excel sheet for FY22. We had little like notes for stuff that we thought needed explaining. So I don't think putting together the FY22 narrative for all the projects will be that difficult. And we could even maybe add another column to write funded, and to be incorporated or ran out of money, or some language that says we need to figure it out. But like Matt was saying, I just don't understand how to plug it into the 5-year plan after that. Do they just automatically go to FY23 and then it must, right?
Well, I think
I think we do, but
Your
like
best guess.
we need a way of like CIPC getting back to the town administrator to say, look, we can't fund that this year. But had it been like a smaller amount or like a different type of request, we recognize that this is a need and it's important, and we want to see this just in a different way. So, this committee has to get back to the town administrator and select board to be able to provide that feedback. But I think, if we're not funding it in the upcoming year, we have to just punt it to the next year, unfortunately, but just ask for a different type of funding request that's made.
But we also don't know what's going to be funded in FY22. We know what we're recommending.
Yep.
But we don't know what's actually being funded. So if the 5-year report is being submitted before the budget for 22 is final, then all we can do is give our recommendation. So we can
Absolutely.
have a column that says expected to be funded, or just list them in priority order, and have a note that on here that we expect the first 12 to be funded, or we can put a row in between two of them that we expect everything above here to be funded.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about this whole situation is that we've given the committee's recommendations to Carter, but that document isn't anywhere for people to find. Nobody can go look at that right now. And maybe that's not appropriate at this juncture, but it's still a public document. Dr. Cummings asked me kind of to give him a sense of where we were. And I told him and I showed him, I copied and pasted kind of the list that we had and where the cutoff is. But I also was honest and upfront and said, look, we don't know what we're really going to be working with here, but this is the recommendation to the TA. And when he brings the budget to the select board, that's when we'll know, I guess. So that's kind of an interesting part of this whole process that I wasn't really anticipating, I guess.
Mhm.
Well, that's why we put draft on everything, because it's not a final.
Yeah.
What we're presenting to him is just a draft, and
Right.
it's not at all the final. thing. He
Right,
makes.
but it's a recommendation, right? Isn't it
Right.
listed as
draft
recommendation?
recommendations,
You
yeah.
don't have to put draft on it. It's the final recommendation from the committee. What Mr. Terenzini does with it, it's entirely up to him. But I think what my point is that there's not a repository for members of the community to find that information, that document. And
That's
if
a
part,
good
and if part of the point is so that we're more open and transparent, that might be something
It
that's
should
not on the
have been
agenda.
in- Should it not have been a part of the minutes, an attachment to the minutes?
Uh,
I thought it should have been.
It wasn't approved in a meeting, so probably should at some point.
Didn't we vote
that-
on that bond? Didn't we vote on that capital plan for 22?
We voted on the plan, so there was the priority list as specified in the spreadsheet, but then Colleen wrote up the document to send to Carter, and we emailed it around and made some suggestions on it. But we as a committee didn't vote on the final approval, and maybe that's something we should do next year is with a little more lead time, is have the final document prepared and then voted on, then we can include it in the minutes. But we could make a PDF of it and list it on our page, presumably.
I think under the new open meeting laws, anything that we are looking at or submitting has to be part of the minutes. Even if we were still had not made a final decision, that's why you put draft on it and then attach it to the minutes. And then when we vote, then that's what the final.
When the actual capital plan gets posted, that'll go under the town administrator. Will his plan include our recommendations and that's where it ends up? Or could it, or could we request that that happens? Say, this is what they recommend. So it's all in one place and easy for everybody. This is what I'm funding. This is what CIPC requested. And then it's really easy for everybody. Oh, it matches up, or oh, it's a little different, but that makes sense, and move on.
Well, that works.
Yeah.
But some people go to the minutes too to look to see what we did.
I like both ideas. I think having more information in a lot of places, because like you said, some people might go through the website differently and expect it to be in one place. So in our minutes that we approved for tonight, can we just say we would like to include all of that documentation?
Or we could ask that it be placed on the budget documents page under the town administrator site.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's important for us to have as a public document the recommendations that we put forth. Because one of the kind of critical elements to the new CIPC charge is really that we get the requests earlier, that the negotiation with the, department heads and that whole preparation process happens before it gets to the town administrator. If he decides to make, or she decides to make different decisions, the public should have an opportunity to see the recommendations versus what was approved and understand why, the decision was made to fund certain things in the actual budget.
How do you guys feel about having Carter and our new finance director in to our next meeting and discuss this with us further? I know she has started a capital plan in her previous town, so she might have a real strong idea of this is what we should do and this is how it's done, and really guide us a little bit better than us trying to guess.
The only issue I see there is she doesn't officially start until February 1st, but she may be willing to come ahead of time anyway.
That's true.
I guess my opinion would be, I think it's a great idea, but it might be better to wait for the new TA to start and meet with them together. Because Carter, he's great and he's awesome and he's doing this year's budget, but he's on his way out the door.
Right.
So it might be better to wait and see and, say hello, come out and meet us. Here's what we've been looking at and get their feedback. But in terms of what to do right now, would it be appropriate for us to put on the agenda for the next meeting that we're actually going to vote on the recommendation that we sent. Because if we
Yeah.
didn't do that, I feel like we should. I thought we did though. That's the thing. My memory is so
Oh,
bad.
we did
I
too.
thought we did too, and then it was kind of with the understanding that even though we pass it around, we've already voted to agree on it and we're just gonna make tweaks, but does it hurt voting on something twice just to be extra safe?
No, and I think as
No.
long as we put it on I think the question is, can we do it tonight? Probably not. We probably should put it on the agenda. Pass the final copy around, make sure we all know what we're voting on, and then do it. And then that would be attached to the minutes. I think that's appropriate.
November 30th, so move to approve the list of projects as ranked and authorize Colleen to write up the final report for Carter. Amy seconded, the motion carried unanimously by roll call vote. And then the minutes of November 30th include the final prioritized recommendation list, but not the final report that was written. So the report was just passed around the committee, so.
I can resubmit those minutes to the town clerk with additional information.
I mean, that's another way. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
So, Greg, did you ever give
that other thing hasn't been voted on as approved minutes, so.
November 30th hasn't?
November 30th has, but anything additional added to it has not been approved by the committee.
No, like the letter that we approved for me to write that we voted on in there, everything you just said that we voted on,
Yeah.
include it with the minutes that I send to the clerk. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm just not sure if we can post a new set of minutes with additional attachments that weren't voted on by the committee.
Unless we do it tonight.
Not sure, we can do it under minute approval of minutes.
I'm okay with that. I'm looking to see if they're even posted at this time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they did get posted.
Yeah, they were received December 8th and posted. Yeah, so they were approved on the 7th and posted on the 8th.
So I'm looking at what was. Oh, I'll throw a link in the chat because it's probably easier. This is not what I was thinking. How do I get back? Sorry, I'm not at my usual table. So, all right. So it's literally just a list. It's not the Excel spreadsheet with
Right.
the fields or any of the notes, or there's nothing. It's literally the list in the minutes, not an attachment. What I'm talking about is a report of the committee.
Yep.
That's our recommendation, that it's submitted and it's stored. It could be stored as an addendum to minutes, but it can also be stored somewhere else. I don't really care. So maybe we're talking about a separate document then.
No, we know what we were talking about the one that was sent to Carter that hasn't been voted on and officially, so I'm not sure it's valid to include them with minutes.
Okay, so let's just do what Amy was saying. We'll add it to the agenda for next time. We'll take an official vote and we will send it off.
That sounds good.
Okay.
As far as the 5-year plan goes, and just not to waste too much time, but we are in this like weird space between who's going to be doing what real soon, but we still need to work on this. So Amy's going to try to tackle the schools and coming up with their narrative list, which is great and awesome. Thank you. We can finish putting together the 5-year plan when Mr. McGoldrick has it, and we can add in the unfunded FY22 if I can get Carter to tell us what those might be. And that's pretty much where we're at, right? There's
Right.
not a ton of work for this part of the project, right? Am I missing something?
Until we
need to make sure we get everything into the spreadsheet and all the numbers updated properly and fix all the formula issues.
Greg, can I put you in charge of that?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, so is there anything else for the 5-year plan for tonight to discuss? This is really just kind of getting back together after the holidays and making sure we're all on a track. And oh, something else I saw on here that I really liked. Let me share screen again to give us an idea. How do I do that? Is this calendar? Did you guys see this? It kind of gives us an idea of what we should be working on throughout the year.
Yeah, I
which
like
I
that a lot.
really- which I really like. We're obviously a little off, not even really, but it's not perfect to this year, but this is something going forward to kind of refer to say, oh, this is where we should be. And
And I think this is a good thing to put on the agenda when the new TA and our finance director come on board to see if they agree with
I
that.
agree.
okay,
Absolutely.
That's,
Yeah. So I think there's some things that would need to be tweaked in here. It's like, because it's CIP committee submits capital budget, multi-year plan to selectmen via town administrator, which isn't how we're doing it here. We're submitting recommendations to the town administrator, and then the town administrator submits to the select board.
okay,
But yeah, absolutely.
General idea, yeah.
I do think the multi-year plan, though, is probably like February is the right time frame. I'm just conscious of the budget book that we put together, and it contains a multi-year plan. So, you know, as a committee, we're going to have to figure out how we work with, I guess it would be a combination of Carter and Evan, to give them the multi-year plan to include in the budget book.
okay.
So I have a question. The 5-year plan is also a recommendation to the town administrator, correct?
Yes.
So the town administrator can then make changes to that 5-year plan before including it in the budget book.
Yep.
So then the following year, do we start with what was in the budget book and go from there? Or do we go back to what we submitted? If, let's say there's significant changes, right? Is that something we decide as a committee, or do we start with what was in the budget book and go from there? That makes sense.
I know what you're saying, and I would say that we would go with what was in the budget book, and our recommendations got scrapped. We have to go with what was there and then adjust and pivot to that.
But our recommendations would still be published, so they're
Correct.
out. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hopefully they're not so far apart, but I imagine there might be some shifts and differences. You know, the town administrator's purview to, they might know something or decide something's.
Or a grant could have come in and whatever. You just don't know.
Yeah, I have to say that I'm excited at the prospect of this committee actually being included in like the projection process. You know, and I would hope that going forward, you know, especially as this committee and the whole process of capital improvement matures, that we're not dealing with substantial changes year to year. I mean, it's capital assets.
Right.
So there should be really, you know, of all the things in the budget, there shouldn't be any surprises at all.
No, you're right. There shouldn't be. We should be working with the town administrator, like side by side, and making a recommendation that is not going to shock that person. I mean, you're right. That's true.
That I'd hope there wouldn't be substantial changes. One thing that was mentioned by Tim is that they do have a list of assets that are being insured. And I wonder if that's something that we should request at some point. You know, all this is, I would guess that we want to be primarily working with our new town administrator and our new finance director, but we should, yeah, have that list and incorporate it into, because incorporate it into our 5-year plan.
Yep.
I don't know if we have everything. There have been several instances over the past few years where things have been a bit of a surprise. Part of that, I think, is that we haven't had a good list of capital assets in town. So
Which would be a lengthy list.
it would be,
Fine,
Yep.
but it's lengthy, and I don't think I've never seen the full list.
Well, because there isn't one.
Right. So
thought
I don't
it
know if
was
that's,
because they. I'm not sure about that, Matt, because I remember several years ago that a list assessment had to be taken for insurance purposes in order to get some insurance renewed. So there has to be a list that has to be kept up to date.
There definitely is a list of insured assets, but I suspect that is not, that's not the comprehensive list. That I think it's a good starting place, but it's definitely not. I don't know if we insure our generators on the buildings, just as one example.
I think it's probably inclusive under there. If you insure the building, you're insuring the generator, because there was a warranty on those when we first put it in for the police station. I know. So I would think it would be included in there, but like you said, I've never seen the list. So I would hope so, because I mean, there's also land that should be on
Yep.
there. You know, everything.
So I think we need to look at it. And figure out if it's comprehensive enough, if it's granular enough. If you have a building that includes generators and other HVAC assets and whatnot that need to be maintained over time, all of that would be relevant for capital plan. It's just.
would something like that be in the master plan?
No,
I don't think so.
nope.
The master plan wouldn't have any reason to have a list of all the assets in town and what's insured. There wouldn't be any reason for that.
Right. This is new to Grafton. We haven't really done this at all. We haven't had that list of capital assets and maintenance schedules and, you know, it's a problem, a bit of a problem with scale. If you're a city, you have to have that stuff. As a town, we're at, I don't know if we need that. I don't know if that's actually something that could be managed over time. But I would like to take a look at the assets in town that are being insured, to see if that's something that we can work off of. Because again, we don't want we want to like predict what's coming up that needs to be replaced. And so any information that we can gather that will help us in that regard will be good.
You know,
Is that something you think we can do as a committee, or is that something that we would have to hire somebody to collect all that data kind of thing?
I don't think we have to hire them. I think we need to have the engineering department give us their list of assessments. The DPW list of all of what they assess for. I mean, all the different departments they know what, the assessment value is, or I should know it anyway. And we would have to get it from several different departments to get all of that list. And the conservation would have a list of all, the open space, the recreation, they would have a list of all of those properties. I don't know if they would have the assessed value of them, but I know David's been collecting a list for the open space and recreation and stuff. So we would just have to get it from various departments.
Okay.
That's something that would be very useful when the department heads meet for the capital summit, assuming that's something that the new TA will continue to do.
Mhm.
Is if you want to know where you're going, you need to find out where you are. Where are we starting? What's coming? I think it's going to help everybody involved, so there are no more surprises. Well, maybe
Absolutely.
a few less, right?
A few less anyway. There's always surprises.
It's about being proactive.
Yep.
Versus what we're doing now. And so, this is not a knock on anybody, but, our capital budget and our, it's all been, what are our emergencies? And we, the capital plan and, projecting forward a few years, is about what are all of the assets in town, where they're at in terms of their maintenance, what's going to need to be replaced. that's how we become proactive. So I don't think there's a single list. Tim did offer up that they had a list of insured assets. And I think that's something that we could just request and evaluate. But I don't think that's everything.
I would guess it's probably not everything, and I wouldn't be surprised to learn that none of the school stuff's on there.
Right.
So that might be something.
Well, the buildings certainly are.
Say again?
The buildings would be.
Yeah, I just don't know what other stuff.
I would guess, for example, though, that the roofs on the building, which is, every 7 to 10 years, or however, I don't know how often the roofs on the schools need to be replaced, but they're probably not insured separately.
Wouldn't think so.
Mm.
But I don't.
Generally, the insurance is for loss. Like, it wouldn't be for breakdown, for the roofs breaking down. That would be some kind of a service plan. I mean,
Like maybe the
insurance
football
would be
team.
lost due to fire or disaster or something like that.
Right. So
as far as timing goes, Carter has to deliver the capital improvement program to the Board of Selectmen by February 1st, and that needs to include the 5-year plan. So we need to make sure we get this in time for him to include that information. So we should really try to wrap it up next week if we can.
So we're not meeting next week unless we have a meeting out 2 weeks, but we can definitely meet next week if people are around.
We have a meeting scheduled next week.
The 14th or the 21st?
that was the 14th.
I thought it was the 14th.
Awesome.
See, you
I
knew.
wrote it on the 21st.
I have CIPC question mark on the 21st, as in I would
Okay.
hope, but I do have it for the 14th.
I have
Yeah.
it.
The minutes for the last meeting say we put them for the 7th and the 14th, and that's what the meetings are set up for.
Yeah,
Okay. The agenda's all posted and everything, so but I have to edit that now.
I
I'll
know
amend it to include the vote.
the Zoom thing came out for the 14th too, so
Okay,
I didn't check the time on it though, but.
probably wrong. I will.
It's right.
Okay, good.
7 o'clock.
Okay, so yeah, that's what we'll do then. Everybody has their task to try to get done for the 14th, and hopefully we'll have something put together, and I'll see if I can get an answer from Carter about what he's looking to fund in FY22 so that we can add anything unfunded to FY23.
And if you could get those new submittals to us as soon as you
Yeah.
possibly, that would be very helpful.
I sent a reminder to Mr. McGoldrick this afternoon to see when he thought he might have them in, and I'm just waiting on a response.
Okay.
Should we request an export of the current 5-year plan so that we can update it? I'm just thinking it would be really helpful if this committee could just hand off to Carter, like in the budget book for FY22, you can just plug this in.
Think so. So what are you asking? If we can
I'm
just,
confused. What do you,
So there's a capital plan put into each budget. I'm
Right.
wondering if we should just request an export of FY21's budget, that capital plan. And we could, with our recommendations, just update the 22 plan that could be inserted into the budget. I'm a little concerned about the production of the budget this year. Because we have 2 town administrators involved.
yeah, I plan to give Carter everything we work on, just like with FY22, everything that we came up with, I handed it over to him so that he can modify it to his liking, and then I would imagine do the same thing with the 5-year plan. Am I not understanding your question?
so Matt, are you asking that we also have the 21 capital plan listed in there, just so it's there for documentation?
I'm concerned about the update of 21 to 22. Can we help do that work?
Okay,
I think it's a formatting question, right, Matt? You want us to submit it in the format?
It is.
Okay,
I'm looking at it right now. Basically, there's one page that has a section of a cutout of a Excel spreadsheet, and then
Which is the budget.
Right.
So you want it to look like it did before with not what we were just looking at. You want it to look like how we've previously looked at it, where it was more of like that narrative view.
It's
it's very
It's
similar.
it's up to this committee, I guess, how we want to do it. But yeah, I'm conscious of time and the people that are actually producing this documentation. I think it's going to be a challenge.
If I can make a suggestion, I think we can do both. I think we can do what we're looking at, which is more work, and distill it down to the less intensive version for the budget book and say, by the way, here it is. And then if they want to edit that and put that in the budget book, it eliminates a step for them having to copy and paste out of a different format. That's what I think I'm hearing, and Matt's nodding. So we do what we're doing in the format Colleen gave us, but then we make Greg.
And we make Greg do the work.
He's so
Um,
fast at it. I would do it. I would do it if I were as fast as Greg, but he would do it in half the time. So why would I do that?
Can I suggest that we kind of let Carter know that that's what we're doing, just to help him out?
Yeah, we need him to send us whatever the file is, though, I think, right? But we have is a PDF, so we can't make it easier for them if we don't have the original file.
Right.
Okay.
So this is what's was posted on the website. So this is the first page of the long range plan, which has a quick summary by department, and then details that look kind of pretty much like what we were just looking at.
Can
So
you?
I think this would probably, oh, I never actually hit the share button.
Oh, there we go.
I selected the thing to share, but didn't hit the button.
And I'm going to mute because apparently one of our children decided to practice an instrument.
So yeah, the first page is there's a breakdown by department for the next 5 years, which is a fairly small thing to do. And then this, which looks a lot like what we were just doing, just that it has the descriptions in with each entry, and we could do that in the one we were just looking at. I think the other difference being it has the funding source options.
And
right
it does start with FY21. So I was jumping all the way to FY23. So we should have FY22 in the 5-year plan.
Yes.
Okay.
Plus, the school department puts all their capital information in their budget book, so. If they want a further what their 5-year range is, they'll have to go to the school department to check that out. Right? Nod your head, Amy.
Say what? I was just gonna say I need to look at the preliminary budget and see if he even did years this time. He may not have.
Because in the past, he's always had his long range plan and then the capital plan, his
Yeah.
capital plan in there, so.
I'll take a look. I suspect it's probably just the same, but
Yeah.
everything moved one column over.
Yeah. So this has the next 5 years followed by the previous 5 years.
Ooh. So, okay, interesting.
I never thought about the previous 5 years. Should we be including that?
I think that's the TA's office job. It's their job to do it, not us.
Well,
We're
one of
just
the
doing
things-
a recommendation, but
one of the things we said for our plan was we were going to track what has been done and what hasn't. So I assume that a history of stuff in the past, maybe not this exact form, but just information on what projects are still ongoing or things like that would be part of our report, probably next year, due to timing on this one.
I think we just need to be careful that the TA is the one who puts together the budget book, and he's going to put in it what he wants to have put in. So, you know, if he decides to put all that in, then that's what he does, because he has it there. So I think we should just deal with what we're currently working on and present that to him.
I agree with both Sue and Matt right now. I agree that in a normal year, we would probably be a little more hands-off with this, but it's not a normal year. So to maybe do a little bit extra this year, just to ensure that it's done, might be welcomed. But then next year kind of back off it.
I would think the last 5 years that all, Carter just has to look at that and include it. I mean, what else has to be done?
Doing that for Carter so that he doesn't have to do it.
Basically, that's dropping the FY16 column and filling in the FY21 column from the budget.
Yeah, and you need
Which
to file for that.
We don't have the final budget was never posted. This is as close to the FY21 budget book as is available on the website right now.
I feel like we had, so if you go to page 2, that's what was funded for FY21. It's that weird little green cutout.
Yeah.
It's below this. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no capital here.
So 2 starts like after this. So that's 1 and then 2 is right here. So that was FY21 right here.
Oh,
Assuming this is what was actually approved at town meeting.
It was. That's for sure what we did.
I'm just not sure if this document is what was actually approved or if this was just a preliminary one. So,
proposed is what he's saying.
yeah.
Not, it doesn't say final on it.
I don't think that was what was approved at town meeting because that was put into the book, but it was changed. He made changes on that at the last minute. So you'd have to get town meeting record and see what they approved. I don't have that.
Wouldn't there be a final document sitting on a hard drive in the TA's office?
Hopefully.
So certainly would be in the town meeting minutes.
Okay.
There's no way
But-
that Tim, like, we had, what was it? It was police equipment, I think, that was proposed to move forward to the fall. That was voted down. The fire equipment was included. I guarantee that there was no way that this budget was updated. This document was updated.
That's
for
right,
the-
because we had our meeting in June and we were changing things right up to the very last minute.
Yep.
Well, it's not this committee's responsibility to figure out what to do about that, but in the interest of proper record keeping, somebody should do something about that. It should be modified and reposted as the final,
Yep,
because it's useless as it is if it's not
Yep.
the real thing.
it doesn't tell us anything at all.
No, but at least the format's there. That's what we were looking at. So, that's the important thing for us.
Yeah, I think capital budget is just part of this. So
Does it say the amount though? And if the amounts match, then
only the gross amounts. Let's see if there's what is this?
Are those the motions?
Those
There
are-
we go. So this is Article 8 capital budget.
all right, 1.
And there were changes to that. That wasn't updated after town meeting, so.
So this is the town meeting minutes.
Oh, wow. All right, well, I think this is kind of beyond this committee's responsibility. We just needed to use the format from the old budget book to submit the plan to make it easier on town staff.
Right.
It probably is worth somebody mentioning to Carter that this budget needs to be sewed up because it's just not, it's incomplete as is. And it's not uncommon. Like, I'm personally disappointed because I thought we'd been doing very well as a town. And based on the research that I'd done for GSC, we definitely were, very transparent and had very well organized budget books, and all the finals were there. Some of the towns don't even put one online at all,
Right.
which we found very frustrating. But I'd like to keep the good thing going as a private citizen, at least. Hi. But I don't know who should do that. I don't think it's this committee.
Yeah, FY19 is the last approved one under the budget documents page. There's a proposed FY20 and a proposed FY21. And the FY20 is the full 339 page book. The FY21 is the 32 page summary.
What do you remember being altered on town meeting floor? Because I don't share that memory. I know that they had already pulled some things out, like the police and fire equipment, but it wasn't all police and fire equipment. Some still remained on the capital plan, but that was done well before town meeting because that was part of the whole, budget discussion.
Well, there were two articles that were written for police and fire, and we already had that in the capital plan.
It was in the override plan, not the capital plan, I thought. And that's where it caused confusion. Because if the override passes, then it was getting funded. If the override doesn't pass, but not so much the capital plan. It wasn't in there twice. I think FinCom would have jumped all over that. They were jumping all over the fact it
Two
was.
articles that were written besides that too.
Right. No, I agree 100%.
So the final capital plan with the override is not accurate, I don't think. Because the police article was turned down, but the fire got 2 votes on the override capital plan and their article.
Right.
Okay.
The money for the
I see what you're saying.
the duplicated one was repurposed at town meeting in October.
So I'll see if I can get at least the documents from Carter if he has them available so that we can at least start plugging information in to at least have that format. That's step one anyway. And then to ask if he potentially has an idea of what he might be funding for FY22 so that we can make any adjustments and go from there. Is there anything else we wanted to know from Carter? Okay. All right, and did we have any minutes to approve for tonight?
Yeah, just one. Okay, so there's 2 sections in the Article 8. So this is the initial article as proposed, and then there's another section with the article as approved. So I think we just have to go with the second one, the part that's under motion should have what's actually approved. So
That's
I'll-
in
I'll-
town meeting minutes?
Yeah, the town meeting minutes.
Okay,
Yes, and we have minutes from December 7th.
I will take a motion for December 7th meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Will Sue,
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Jeremy,
aye.
Matt,
Hi.
Colleen, aye. Okay. And that was it for December?
Yep.
Perfect. And we're gonna meet again next week, and we all have a plan to be working on stuff for then. Is there anything else?
So all we have to look at is the additional things, though, that Chris will send forward, hopefully soon,
Yep.
and not the night before.
And if I get the documents from Carter, I'll send them all out, and as soon as I get stuff, I send it to you guys anyway.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Greg's gonna make the Excel document so that I can edit and add the school stuff.
And Greg, you're okay with all that?
Yep.
A lot of stuff. Okay. Thank you. All right, well, then we can adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Sue,
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Pauline, aye.